We're live. We're going to go ahead and call order here. Mark, not here. John?
Present.
Carrie,
I'm here.
Kevin is not here. Lisa is here.
Yes.
Vacant. They're not here. All right. Confirmation form, we're good?
Yes, we are
Perfect.
good. And you have before you the November 6th, not the January 8th. And I meant to send those earlier, but my week got away. So if you want to take some time and look over them,
We did not approve these the last.
you did not know September is what you approved. So we did not have a meeting in December.
Right. This was our first meeting with Crystal, and she explained what we didn't know, which we didn't have enough time to explain what we didn't know, but we explained some of the stuff we didn't know.
This is one.
There's so much that we don't know that Crystal has
Phenomenal
to
spending
keep.
plan.
That
Right.
didn't mean
Just put the
anything.
entire budget into one thing.
Right. Yep. So if either of you guys,
I move to approve.
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Discussion. Or nobody's opposed, good.
Okay.
We'll keep moving. And we did the elections of officers,
Is that on?
but that was not in this meeting, right? That was
in January.
in January.
We have the minutes for January 8th.
We do not, but you have that noted here,
Oh, I do?
number
Where?
4. Approval of minutes and election of
You
officers.
have a G. Oh, do you have an old agenda? I'm like, what are you
Okay.
talking about? How did you get that? That's
Okay.
weird. There you go.
Right. Perfect. Look at that. I'm bowling. All right. Is there any old business? I do believe
No.
there is a little bit. I'm going to go through this and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is, we did mention that vacant wasn't here. And that maybe is old business because we still have a spot open for that.
Yes.
Maybe you want to give an update on that.
So I am going to send, we have an option, someone I have talked to, they are in Florida right now. And I'm going to email some items to him and see if he is available. And it is our retired City of Angola engineer, Bill Boyer. So that is absolutely just me talking to him. He has not agreed to do anything at this time, but so we are looking at filling that position, which will help because as you can see, if we're just missing one, you know, we've got a quorum, but we're close and that makes it difficult. So he is someone that we're looking at to fill that vacant position.
I will add as an advocate, Bill was here in Angola for a lot of years and then retired and was called back to duty in Shipshawana for several years. And came back here and then he went to Shipshawana again, right?
No, he was here, went to Shipshawana, then came back here.
And then he was back in Shipshawana again, not as,
For a little bit, yeah.
not as
not as-
director. So anyways,
yeah.
what,
Always as a city planner / engineer or.
engineer.
Town manager,
Manager in Shipshawana, engineer
Yeah.
here, which there's,
yeah,
he's familiar with a lot of the area and
the
projects.
infrastructure, yeah. So that's who we're
And lives
looking,
in town.
if we can talk him into it, yes. We'll see.
Any other old business?
I don't believe so.
Okay. New business. Discussion regarding eligible projects. So is this where you want to jump right in?
I kind of think so. So Crystal is on Teams, just
Okay.
FYI. So I did bring mine and I can make some copies, but I have on here discussion of eligible projects and then mapping out the proposed expansion. So I have all these maps everywhere that we can start kind of looking at some
Okay.
things that we talked about. Eligible projects. Crystal, do you want to touch on how that plays into our timeline, or if we get our expansion done and our expansion areas done first. I'll let you kind of take the lead on that. Okay.
You don't have to drink when you're done.
Crystal, what defines a gateway?
So we did, hold, just one second. So the backstory is we did the, this was before, but the sign on US 20, when you come on 69 and you get off the exit there on 20.
Yep.
There's a sign that says Angola. The bridge was painted and it looks like a water scene that says Angola.
Oh, yeah.
The TIF paid for that sign.
Okay, aesthetic improvements.
Aesthetic.
or-
I mean, she can define gateway, but I want to tell you locally, that's one way that we did use it.
Okay,
That's the only thing we've used a TIF for.
okay.
Other, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So Crystal, oh, go ahead. Well, one thing I was going to just mention really quickly is as we look at the expansion, what we talked about was expanding versus creating new allows us to say, and I'm just, this is completely hypothetical, whatever, but if we tip into the downtown and we expand it through that right of way up north, if we say, hey, we're in that, like, let's say we're going down the middle of the road so we can take in the infrastructure. We pick a few parcels that we want to add in, but as that TIF fund grows, even if it's coming from the north money, from the north development, we can utilize that if it relates to what we're doing to the downtown. Does that make sense? I said that completely wrong, but if we want to use TIF for some infrastructure in the downtown, but we aren't really getting a lot of money from our downtown TIF, but we're getting more money from the north, and it makes sense to relate it, we could use those funds because it's all an expansion and not a separate TIF, correct?
With the limitation that we don't put any allocation areas in.
Oh. Right.
So like, for example, if we were to expand along the right of way through the downtown and then north, almost like an L, could we allocate like downtown as basically incentives or whatever for like water projects? Because we know we have issues with our sewer there. And so monies would only go for that. Does that make sense? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, so the tool would be more,
Right. Right.
It's, it's in our best interest to keep it as broad as
Right.
possible.
Yes.
So just
We
focus
may
on the
have to-
plan and not the
We may
allocation.
have to negotiate with developers.
That's the
who want
question.
Something more narrow.
how long does it take to do, so we're doing an amendment, we follow that time frame. What about adding an allocation area? Because those are gonna be more, once a developer approaches us, we're gonna be more likely to do that allocation area. How long is that process? So that's 2-3 weeks?
Talking to you.
Couple of days.
So what we want to do,
Correct. Yeah. So,
So maybe we don't worry about.
So I
Wow.
think right now, what's in our plan is very specific. And what we want to do is make that very broad to say, hey, we're gonna use this for infrastructure, water, sewer. We're gonna use it for trail connectivity
Right.
or sidewalk connectivity, whatever that looks like. We're gonna use it. I mean, whatever we feel like is going to benefit our community with these uses. So if we can keep that broad, that covers that through that whole TIF area. And then if we do have the smaller allocation area, which at this point in time would look like a possible downtown area, because we do have a developer specifically looking at something in that downtown area. So if we do, while we're doing this plan, create that allocation area, it's an allocation area inside our TIF, which then we have an economic development agreement for the allocation area, but the TIF plan is still very broad for everything else. Okay. Okay.
correct, okay.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. And I think, and we've talked about this before, you guys, right now, our TIF plan is literally like the water tower, which is done, relining some sewers and doing something with Heads Record. I mean, it was very specific, which does not really broaden that for improvements that we want to do in the community. So Crystal, is our goal to come up with the project plan first, or our broad eligible projects, a list of that first specific and then map out? Or can we do our map on what we think we need to exclude and what we think we need to add in and then come up with our plan? Yeah.
So I mean, it's the easiest way is for the city to acquire the property is what it sounds like and transfer over. I mean, we don't have to go through the whole process again if they purchase the property and transfer through. Is that what you just said?
So I can tell you guys that we initially talked about this when we first started talking about expanding our TIF and doing something different. The mayor said, you know, we need the ability to acquire properties and go through that. And talking to Crystal later on, it was very notable that we would have to have this acquisition list. And then you have to make sure that those property owners know that they're on this acquisition list. So it looks like, in theory, oh, the city is going to try to take my property at some point. And there has to be a reason, you know, is the word debilitate, not debilitating, you know, the word I'm trying to think of, but is there a reason that we would have those on an acquisition list? So at this point in time, the mayor had said, I'm not trying to open that door with redevelopment. I don't have an acquisition list. There's not a section of town that we're like, oh gosh, you guys, we could get this developed if all of this was torn down or whatever. I mean, there's not anybody's property that we want to attempt to acquire from them right now. So that we could think of at the time. I mean, if you guys are thinking of an area, you know, surely share that with us, but we were going to just not put the acquisition portion in the plan right now. Again, if we amend it, we're looking at another 6-month process. Is that correct, Crystal?
Now, can't the Economic Development Committee own property?
The EDC, the county EDC or our?
Or yours?
That was another question I had. I don't know.
Okay. On the city side, the county can for sure, but the
The
city.
county can for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is another thing, and Crystal, we'll talk about this, but we have an economic development commission at the city that's like 3 or 4 people, I think 3. They didn't even meet last year. It just has not been something that's been very active. So I probably should have already brought them in on this. And I just haven't thought about it, but at some point we need to bring them in because they will need to be involved in this expansion process, correct?
Not if we don't do it alone,
Oh.
only if we do it alone. So what we've talked about, we can share, is not a loan.
It's just an allocation.
It's an allocation to put a percentage back to the project, which they won't take a loan out on it. So they would not, my understanding is they would not need to be involved with that. There wouldn't be any debt though, because they would cover that cost. Okay. So who holds that? So okay. You know who's on that committee?
It used to be Libby Highsong, June Julian, and I think Vicki Thompson, who is from the art scene over here. But like I said, they didn't even meet and I would have to get a hold of them and see, do you guys want to be
Okay.
on there? I
Probably
think
should
they're
do that.
still on, but yeah, I need to start that conversation. It just wasn't. Um, okay. Okay.
Do they have to approve it then? Or I'm a little confused what their role really is. If
They
RDC
have
makes
to
a
be a-
decision, they're part of it. What are they? They're just a pass-through, or they have to approve it as well, or? So they should be involved from the start. Before a financial deal is even suggested, they should be part of that conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so we will work on that. Okay, so do we want to talk about mapping a little bit on this? Because I have all these different maps marked everywhere. Sorry about my groaning. We're back at age 25 years this week. So we all kind of talked about and looked at these and we can get up and gather around, but there are some areas that looking at this, we felt that we could exclude from our existing TIF. Crystal, I saw that you got some GIS information. Yes, yay. So one thing that has to happen is that when we determine what parcels we're bringing in to this, like what that looks like, we have to have legal descriptions on all of those parcels and the way that they're taxed and how that looks. So Crystal has kind of been working behind the scenes trying to get all of that from the county's GIS guy, Garrett, and he sent that today. So we're excited for that.
So we're probably, I know this is a shot in the dark, but there's a good chance we spend majority of our dollars we have in just redoing this TIF because of all the surveying and everything else that's required.
Well, and what we put in that,
Just so we're aware of that, does that make sense? Crystal, would you think that's close? Okay, that'd be great.
oh, good.
It's just a boundary survey.
Oh, a boundary survey, not a full legal description. Oh, okay.
So
What you said.
okay. That's assuming we stay on property lines. Correct or not?
Is there a reason? Want to leave property
Yeah,
lines?
you'll see when you get downtown, so when you get downtown, the property lines don't line up. So like a backyard and a front yard, they don't line up. So then you end up either following that line or you may have let me just give you an example here. Of an area, and I'm not saying we're doing this area, but as I was looking at the other day, I noticed, say you want to come in. Let's just say this here. Say you want to take this, you want a line right through here. Well, this property here comes in behind us. So do you come in and you follow every property line? You might be able to do that, but then you're going to get, that's the question, how jagged are you going to get with this or not? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we don't know what we're doing, but that's what I'm asking. The cost will be increased if you go down if you don't stay on property lines. That's what you're saying, which would make sense. Yeah. Right. Which some of those have been parceled off and they don't show up yet on GIS, right? You've parceled some of those, like in Meyer and stuff, have been parceled off, but
Some of them, Menards platted their outlots, Myers did
they
not.
did not. Okay,
So,
Menards did.
Yeah,
So. I think the thing to do is probably just start here with the ones, and it's not on this map, but
yeah,
we talked a little bit about
we have it, it's
this
marked,
area here is right now, we'll just talk broad. This area is the trailer court that's out there, and it's part of the TIF right now. Yeah, let me see if I can figure out how to do that. Where's Teams at here? Which one do I want to
On
share?
the left. On the left. See the share up next to the leaf?
Are you on me? No, I'm on the wrong window. Darn it.
oh, that, yeah, what,
Do you see?
I grabbed the wrong one. I'm sharing with, no, I can't see my mouse. Hold on here. I want to stop sharing that. I want to share the
Go
screen.
over on the Chrome. Over.
Here?
The share on the right.
What the world? Yeah, you're right. But that's gonna be, now can you see what we're, oh geez. Can you see what we're looking at? Huh?
There was another button. Hit share this window again. Go back to that. Share.
There we go. Now we're on. Now it's your fault if you can't see it.
okay.
All right. Now I lost my mouse. There's too many screens here.
I know, it's, and some of them, like these two show each other, this one doesn't, but now you've got them on all, so we're
No, I
good.
can't see my mouse. Isn't that cool? How is that possible?
It's probably on this screen over here maybe, or this.
No, it's on the screen. See, when I click, it's there. You can see it hovering.
You've run out of computational power.
I have many times. That's cool. I can't,
I don't know where it has
There
gotten.
you are, up here at the top.
oh, there it went.
you
All
are.
right, now we're back. All right,
X that.
All right.
so what we talked about a little bit was this is part of that right now, the TIF. Let me close, you said that. Let me close this bottom part. And let me close this. And I'm gonna get a kink in my neck. All right. The question is, why is this part of that at this point in time? I mean, we don't have to decide that now, but that was the question. Is it developable? It is, you could develop it at some point, but there's also a lot of other ground out there that's not being done.
When,
Go ahead.
when the TIF was started, were there ideas of maybe it not
The
being?
idea was to get rid of it.
Right,
That was the idea.
that's what I figured.
But I will speak to, there's a lot of dwellings out there. We already don't have enough dwellings.
We have zero intention of.
If you
doing anything with that.
Right.
delete this, we create a bigger problem elsewhere in the county. That's my only, everything I share is personal opinion, right? You guys can push back and I could care less, but I mean, I will listen to it. This property here, they have asked about joining the TIF. There's no plans at this point for that property.
Is that the
Um,
Wise property?
Yeah,
That's,
talking about?
Donnie owns that, yes, and this down here. There has been talks, I'm gonna share what I am allowed to share that I know from past stuff, but there has been talks of developing some of this. When the water came through 69, the water came to Love's. Love's paid for that. Love's owns that water. And Love's really proud of that water. So for anybody else to put here, they're gonna have to work that deal out with Love's. Okay, does that make sense? So that's kind of been a deterrent.
I don't know how long that.
But at some point, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where Love's paid and where they didn't pay for it and how much they're really wanting. But I would think if we add this to it, we potentially say you really do well on this TIF, you potentially could run your new water out there. I'm not saying that we could afford to do that. But that's something to consider is this area here. The other
That's
area.
for commercial development?
That'd be commercial development, yes, yep. The other area, you guys tell me if you can't see it, but right in here, this is TIF now, all of this is. And then, this is right here, Ethan, goes all the way back down this Vance property, doesn't it?
Yeah, oh, he went the other way. So It is marked on this. This blue area, so we had looked at, so this is the Vans property, I believe.
Mhm. Oh,
This is Sunlight Community Church,
Yep.
which we said, why is that in there? They
yep,
don't
so
pay
we'll move that
taxes.
one off of there. So Crystal can't see us, but Crystal, we're talking this property here and this property here are both in there. I will tell you, we can keep it in there. There's still talk of potentially doing, I've talked to them personally and they'd love to just sell the property and dump it.
They have a PUD that they planned on multifamily housing and had just, just did not come to fruition at any point.
And it probably, the property's not worth a whole lot the way the ground lays, but it's in there now. There's really, on this side of the road, it does pick up Zimmer's here and goes around the back. The church is in there, some of the church's
Sunlight,
property.
but not.
So we would get rid of the church's property because they don't pay any taxes.
It's not that church though, it's Sunlight
So
on down.
Sunlight is
Sorry,
here.
Sunlight
The
is,
Nazarene
yeah,
Church is
sorry,
over here.
Sunlight is.
And
And this is,
it goes
See, that's
around the
Gateway.
Nazarene Church, so
Yeah.
it doesn't incorporate the Nazarene
Right.
Church.
so then it does not include this property here and this property here. These two are Donnie's as well. He's got this ready to build and this one's a good road frontage. So I think you pick those up. These are all opinions, right? These are developable. These lots are.
So he's talking about these here, so that boy's bought that, and he
Okay.
did he buy this one
Yep,
along the
yep.
road? Okay.
Isn't he looking to develop residences?
No,
Like right
Okay.
here, okay, where the lake part is,
this
he
here,
doesn't have a,
John, I shouldn't have said that. This here, he wants to keep it just fish on it. But this here would potentially be residence back in here, but he does have this graded off for commercial.
Right.
He'll parcel it
He'll
out.
parcel it
Yeah.
out. There is, I skipped over, there's a bunch of wetlands in here
it's keep going to the east, that,
that we've got in here. We've got some
Oh, yeah.
wetlands in
Up.
this.
yeah, so
And that, I don't know, you might as well, I don't know why that's in there. You can't do anything with it.
Wetlands.
right
Yes.
here,
Yeah.
that's just,
Yeah,
it's literally a swamp.
It's
Yeah.
wet.
Yeah.
So now we come down the right of way then is what, so it ends right here. So I'm thinking you come down this right of way.
Come down the right of way or the middle of the road? Like,
Middle of the road, which will get both right of ways.
so middle of
to
the
the right-
road,
right away to
Crystal
right
gets
away.
both right of ways, right?
Well, she shared with
Okay.
us, this is kind of confusing, but yes, because, so you guys, if it comes up in future, you guys will be aware of this, but see this property line? These property lines actually touch, which is not normal.
Yeah, that's weird.
And they do change when they get closer to town, so that'll be just something fun to deal with. These two properties, I looked who owned these and I called, I happen to know the guy, so I called on these two. And they bought them at an auction and their plans are, him and another guy, they're not from around here. Their plans are to develop it when somebody wants to develop it. So my thought is you grab these because it's commercial, there's not gonna be residential. And the main sewer runs through here too, I believe. Isn't
Hit
that
the
correct?
zoning on that. Is that commercial or is it, sorry, you're gonna mess up. I know you're gonna go to layers and
No, I can figure this out here, I think.
under planning,
Community planning.
it should be.
Sorry, I feel like I'm left-handed with my head on backwards.
There you go.
Angola zoning.
Yep.
Okay, disclaimer means they're not gonna be responsible for anything.
So, oh, it
It
is
is
C1. Did I
C1.
look at that the other day? Okay.
I guess I can leave that on. It doesn't hurt anything. So then we would continue. Maybe I'll turn it off. It's a little like rainbowish for me. All right. So we'll get on the right of way again. That's really the only thing developable. Now, what we looked at, what I would suggest is we don't pick anything up.
Well, no, because Trine.
The Trine's
Say,
gonna
what's
have-
Trines? What are
So,
they doing?
so Trine's not gonna pay taxes.
Yeah, either, whatever they're, like those houses
So
that they
we're in a weird,
demoed.
we're in a weird spot where the Cameron's looking to expand, Trine's looking to expand, right? And the city has some properties, the courthouse has some properties. None of those are gonna pay us any taxes. And then we have a lot of churches right there.
Yeah,
So we don't pick any of those up.
No,
So
which
That was
is-
a question I had,
Yes.
whether Trine had tax.
I know, because
That
you
was
look
short.
along there, because there will be some development. Here, they got this, they got those, like
Right.
something will happen,
Try
but
and find everything they can up on the hill.
Correct. Correct. So then I think we come down to, so the master plan for the last 5 or 10 years, for those of you who haven't been part of all the conversations. Trine sets here, Cameron sets over here,
Park.
Gale Street goes straight through. The plan was years ago, hey, make this a common corridor that people hang out in.
Okay.
They live on, they eat on, they hang out on. That was the plan.
Connects the
don't know how many
university
years. It's
to
been at
the
least
downtown,
probably 10 or
to the
15.
hospital. to
That might have been in the
park.
Stellar grant. That might have been 20 years ago.
It
It's been a
was-
long time ago.
It was like America's Best Communities and Stellar
It's been
is
a
when
long
we
time.
initially started talking about that.
So,
Ride my bike down that road to go home.
yeah, see, there you go.
See, it's the perfect
It
connector.
really is a good connecting road. So
Yeah,
the thought is there's some fraternities here on Darling Street. The antique shop is here, fraternity here.
Yep.
You skip all that and come down here to Superior and come down. And this is where you grab Gale Street. But the suggestion is to grab about half of this. This is where those properties come in that I was talking about. Come in about half of this block through here. Reason being, developer comes in and wants to develop this area. They're gonna want more space than a single lot on this road. They're gonna want to put, multi-housing, some mixed use or whatever that would be through this area. And that allows for that. The city has parking here. The funeral home, I've talked to her about selling. And you have to have a lot of time if you want to talk to her. She enjoys talking to you about the business. But it's just her. Her husband's passed away. So
Right.
eventually she'll want to sell. And I don't know that Trine will come this way right away. So what we could do is if we did this area, we could, and Chris, you're going to correct me if I say
with a
anything wrong.
private developer.
If we did this area, there is a private developer looking at that right now. And we would write that in a way that this area would be allocated. This would be an allocation area that they would pay the infrastructure costs on the front end. And we would give 90% of our TIF dollars to them until that cost was covered. That's a basic way of saying that. Does that make sense? So over however long it takes to
Of
get
the
to that,
allocation area only,
just of that allocation
of
area.
those 2 blocks of Gale is what
I went through that.
what the mayor
fast.
has been
Does that
talking
make
So
sense?
they want a 90-10 split, but they'll front the money.
They'll front the money. We do a 90-10 until it's all paid off.
90-10 split.
That's really what it is.
Only on this allocation area. So if this
Correct.
whole area we're hoping
Now,
some development comes in,
what we would do,
only this allocation area.
what we would
Is it
do.
their
then-
choice as to what's done?
No, we would set that deal up. They would have to propose to us what they're doing and we'd have to approve of all. They'd have to go through the process like normal.
I was gonna say,
And we would be part of that.
have they given some general ideas?
It would be.
Because I mean,
Just
I drove down that way, I was like, I don't know where because there's houses.
It
and
would
there's a few
fit like what I was
businesses, and
saying.
then parking lots,
It would
we
have
don't
to be
a lot of
Yeah,
that.
there's
residential, mixed use, some of that residential. So
So if
they
something
would
was
talk-
residential, would we have to build that into our
No,
plan?
'cause it would be
Residential's
multifamily.
problematic.
Because
it'd
it's
be
multifamily.
multifamily.
Okay.
So we would get around that.
So that-
That what we would want to write into that because it is multifamily. They would, good chance they'd want to go to the students, right? And say, students live here and then, hey, try and you take this. In order to protect ourselves from that, we would write into the agreement that this could not be for X amount of years, could not be taken off the tax roll. So try and can purchase it, but they'd still have to pay taxes on it. Does that make, we don't
That
want
makes
to
sense.
say, hey, we're going to do this and then you get it paid back.
Is there ever
And it's just-
is there a precedent of trying buying apartments or?
No.
Yeah, so they have done this
Have
before.
they?
So what they've done, so the honor dorms, is that what they, honor villas? Is that
Oh,
what
the
they call
villas
the
up
villas?
villas?
across.
So when
Yeah.
Trine was really hurting back in the early 2000s, late 90s, those were built by private investors, leased to the university until the university was able to purchase. And they did that with a few other buildings on campus.
Okay,
They have not, to my knowledge, it's not been done recently.
yeah, they've been, they're in the process of raising dorms.
Yeah, they're doing in building a new
Correct.
dorm. So they're doing their own housing,
They're
yeah.
doing it now, but that's the old funding method was get somebody else to do it. We'll lease till we can afford and find a donor to go purchase. So to answer your question, that is definitely a possibility that they would do that.
I mean, they might say, hey, we're growing so quick, we want graduate students in here. Who knows?
Right.
But at this point right now, new infrastructure is just benefiting us as a community.
And that's what the money would be spent on
And
infrastructure.
yeah, so for water, sewer, new lines, those are old to get through there. Again, this is just, we're in discussions. There would have to be, by the developer would have to do some property acquisition themselves. There would have to be some things that happen, but the discussion is, hey, if we front all this infrastructure, did you do an allocation area? How about pay that portion of that back? Then that stops, then it's ours, from there on out.
Quick question.
Yes.
Because I can't remember where the historic district, like, is there any like hangups that anyone's gonna run into on that short corridor?
There could be with the historic district, yeah. So the historic district ends, is this Fidel?
Yeah.
This is in it here.
There's nothing historic about that building. I'm just gonna tell you
I
that.
know, but
It's a used bread store.
And it's cold.
she had wanted it in there
Okay, well.
years ago, so she kind of went back to that. So yeah, the historic district is here and
And is
it
she the one that
includes
has to
this.
be the one to approve this too? Is she the one on the EDC, whoever you're saying? She-
No.
Okay.
Are there restrictions on what we can do in this historic district?
Oh.
There are, and it's caused
You can't do
problems with a lot of
anything
people.
Without
You know,
spending
and
more
I think
money.
it's hampered some.
It is an issue.
Potential.
It's a great thing. Again, opinion, right? It's a great thing to have one because it makes it look nice. People do stuff.
If
that
it's
looks
already
awful,
well maintained.
But it's very, it's very.
It's not preservation if it's not being preserved.
It's cost prohibitive.
I'm sorry to say that over and over,
But the
like
city's
there's.
done a good job. Now there's even more money available to help with that. on
Yes,
that.
so we have
Facade
increased
stuff.
our facade grants for some of our downtown buildings in our historic districts so that they can do some things on their facades to improve them. But you're
So-
absolutely right. It has hindered some development. There have been some issues, but I think that we have a good board. We always have had a good board, but they also recognize the benefit of development and things happening. And we have talked again for years on some higher density in our downtown and really boosting some of that, and anything that creates gathering spaces, anything that brings people is a good thing. So that is just a portion of
Yep.
that. You can continue.
So we
on
would
your-
go down the middle of this block is my thought, and get Spidel's building in here. This Chihuahua is empty right now. McFadden's building here is Henry Flats. You ride by there, it's a really good building, a nice building that got
Yeah,
a few
yeah.
apartments. Grab that because there's potential for growth in that building.
Absolutely.
And then come all the way up, before I go, I would come up all the way to the backside down Gilmore and make that as a square. Because then you pick up any infrastructure down 20.
Because if we go the other way, we've got county and we've got
So we
hospital.
wouldn't go any
Again, that
farther
doesn't
here.
make us.
What I would suggest so is to come up here, come over here and pick up this block as well. My theory behind that is the moose, is this the moose?
Yes.
The moose, the hearsay is the moose is not doing as well as they'd like to be doing. This is a little pocket park here, and it'd be nice to be able to do something here. And then we also have money for these buildings as well if we catch this. But again, everything's up for conversation.
And let me just throw out quickly as we move to the north, that the idea for the downtown buildings is that as we can continue to promote growth and as we want things to happen in our downtown, right now, we're just very, very limited, especially on the infrastructure on West Maumee and around. We're just limited on what we can bring in because they're all sharing a water line. There's always, it's just.
So all those buildings need to be, none of them are fire suppression. There's no sprinkler systems in those buildings.
So looking at
So to put a
restaurants
building
and
in there,
things like that,
It's
yeah.
really- So we did this building here and put apartments and everything in this building. And we had residential sprinklers, which worked, but you couldn't do anything. You couldn't put a restaurant in there. You couldn't get fire suppression for your hood. It's
So to
tough.
increase our capacity, fix our infrastructure is how we're going to build that development in our downtown. And that's super important. And so when we're talking about that, again, that's why I said, okay, if there's not a lot of development now, again, that increment financing doesn't grow. But if it grows out to the north and we can utilize it this way, it makes sense to keep the heartbeat of our community thriving in our downtown and make that happen.
So we're looking at areas where enhanced infrastructure could lead to more opportunities. We are looking at areas that are potentially ripe for development anyway. I have a further question about the infrastructure.
Mhm.
Seems like every year a water main breaks in front of the middle school in that area.
Yeah, Hendry Park was on.
So I will
a
tell you,
journey to-
I really wanted to call Matt the other day, superintendent the other day, because every year he's been here, he's had a water main break somewhere.
Mhm.
So yes,
Because I think the infrastructure is pretty old.
it is. Now, these were, I think, the one like Henry Park, that was private, right? So some of these are private, some are not. But still, the idea is that the city only has so much money, right?
True.
And if we can offset the cost here, then they can maybe put it there. What is tough, and this is all subjective, is you want to buy something that's got low property tax. You want to put low property tax in there now because then you got room for growth, right? I mean, you don't want to start something, put a TIF that's already maxed out because there's no incremental increase. Personally, I don't know that we're going to get a lot of incremental increase on the downtown buildings.
Not the ones that face the mountain.
You're probably not going to get a lot, but they still need help. So that's where we've used, and that's what Retha was saying, if you could get.
Offsite residences that could be turned into restaurants, for example.
Correct. That's where Retha's saying, hey, if it's all connected, you may be able to bring that money elsewhere and say it's all connected.
Right.
So does that answer, is that what you were saying?
Well, yeah, and I was just thinking, like, are there regions of notoriously old infrastructure?
I think the whole city. No, not the whole thing. Tom would be able to speak to that better and,
Because the one criteria is where can you get the increments, right?
Yeah.
But the other criteria could be what needs the
where can you
redevelopment.
spend it,
Yeah.
right? You gotta be able to spend it if you make it.
Absolutely.
So,
And we're never gonna spend more than we have. So, but if we're.
yeah, we're
adding
not a
something-
government entity, is that what you're saying? Or we are, we can do that.
I'm just here, I'm just observing tonight. These are not my opinions. These are not the voices.
So the
of-
thought would be to just go down the right of way then, down North Lane.
Yep.
Okay?
Crystal, you had mentioned something and I'm trying to look
Not
through
right
the
away
minutes
center of the
because
road,
I
but-
think it was put in there that you said, if you are just wanting to, if you're just focused on infrastructure, then, stay in that right of way or that middle of the road to pull the right of way in. But when we're ready to actually get some increment to actually grow finance, we need to capture those parcels off of that, right? Something to that effect. Right. That's where we're gonna collect our revenue. I need to.
Will we collect money on this road, on 20 where the properties touch? You know what I'm saying? Like where that one road we were looking at, how's that gonna work? Is that the assumed right away or? That's not on, yeah. Not here. Okay, we'll figure that out. So then we come up here and then there's been talk about this,
Where are we at?
okay, so this is Dairy Queen, or,
That's the train
Used to be
tracks,
there.
the
The train- used to be-
Guadalajara. or whatever.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay.
thank you.
I just
And
need
this
the
is
landmark.
this is univertical.
Yep.
This was the old Dana site.
Mhm.
So there is some contamination, potential contamination that potential. The whole site was that way to begin with.
Right.
And there's a backstory to how Univertical started. It's because it had contamination that they were able to start. It sounds weird, but that's a story for another
Well,
day.
isn't some mitigation, like that's something we could help with?
We could.
Could.
Yes.
If it was
Right,
getting
but it-
developed, which
Right,
was,
but it is a.
if it was gonna give us revenue or,
Right.
something,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't. The city's not gonna wanna do anything environmental. There's been too many cases, so I don't think we have to worry about it. They're not gonna wanna jump on. They've done that in the past and it won't be top priority, I'm sure. So you go up here, I think you grab this parcel and this is an empty one as well. My thought would be to come and grab this one and go all the way over here so you are to Wooler. We talked about paths and things like that.
Sidewalks,
that-
what we could do.
We would have a connection very easily then in the future if we ever wanted to go down Wooler, we could do that. So you'd have, this would be all developable here.
But then, so in order to touch Wooler, to say that that makes a difference if we were to do sidewalks or do something down here. Crystal, how far down do we have to go? Does that matter? Can we just?
Well, we'd have to redo the whole plan at that time anyways.
To take it down? So if it was a sidewalk, and we talked about other vacant properties in Wooler, I'm just saying, if it was a sidewalk that went all the way down to connect to the Harcourt Trail that connects to our northern
would
retail,
make
that
sense.
makes sense.
Again,
Which is what, yeah.
I think. If he can't, we'll get a new attorney. He left, we can say it, we're giving him a hard time. It was mentioned about, what do we call this, Circle Lake, what's the?
Center Lakes, but that's
But see, it's
outside
not
of,
in our, we didn't think about that till the other day.
It's not
It's not
actually
in the city.
it's not in the
No.
city at this time.
So
It
you'd have to annex
eventually
that.
will be, yeah, but
So again, say, hey, this is developable, how do we get somebody in there? So go get this, then again, head north. Keep going down the center of the road here. And then we get out to Walmart here. And this is Ruby Tuesdays. All right. There is talk, to my knowledge, this property, you guys have seen this property is starting, the house, Nielsen's house, it's all gone, right?
Yeah.
There's talk of putting a road from here straight through. Okay, and then this part here would be all commercial, that would be accessible from the east. So it would not be accessible from the main road.
so it's an access drive that goes to.
All the way through here.
4, but yes.
Does that make sense? And then this area would be detention area. Right now, the trailhead comes down around Ruby Tuesdays and, goes up that little hill with the retaining wall and comes back down to here.
Yep.
One thing we could use is as they redo this, we could use some money to redo that trail for them. Because it will probably have to be redone. I would like to see personally put that trail on the east side of this access road. So you're not out by the busy road and you're not crossing a whole bunch of driveways, but that's something that could potentially be used for. Then it comes back up here. Whether you pick, there's an outlot here. And whether you pick that outlot up or not, or you just keep going down the road, there's this one here is taken care of, I believe. Is it just this one?
Mhm.
So there's a lot here that's still available and a lot here that's still available. Whether we pick those up or not, one advantage would be, and Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong, one advantage is this project is a go or as close to go as you can. So if you were to
It's
get
just
this,
about to pull permits.
if you were to get this done
Before the end of the year.
before the tax base changed, you would grab that right away. Did I say that right, Crystal? Okay. So I would So,
Essentially right
I
behind
got,
here.
I guess I have a bit of an issue with that.
Okay.
Because the purpose of this is to incentivize projects that could not otherwise get done. If that one's going, then that incremental tax base goes to the city anyway.
is the
But they
purpose,
haven't
so
asked us for
I'll
anything
re-ask
either.
that. Is the purpose to get projects done that wouldn't get done? Or is purpose to be able to pay for projects that wouldn't get done? So I'm saying that in two ways, same thing you did. You understand what I'm asking? Is it so that, in this case, what's their names coming in there? TJ Maxx, is it to, I would say it's both of these, and I'd argue both ways. One is to incentivize TJ Maxx to come to town. The other one is to make sure we have enough money to fix our sidewalks and other stuff, right? It could get fixed because that money's going to the city anyways, and they could spend that money there.
Yes.
But we also can
But
help
then they also have the freedom to spend it.
wherever they want to spend it,
Yes.
which is good for them and could be good for us too. So it's a valid point. Right. Yep. Correct. Because the way that showed is after that 20 years or whatever it was, the city was better off with us having a TIF on the front end, is the way I remember seeing that. Is that correct? Okay. This, so this is as backwards as it gets from my side, who's done the developing, right? So if I wanted to come and ask, the only tool we had at one time was tax abatements, right? So if I wanted to come in and ask for a tax abatement, I had to make sure that I wasn't gonna do the prop, if it was a state level. I had to make sure I wasn't gonna do the project unless I got the tax abatement. Because if I went and pulled a permit, the state would say, you're doing the project, we're not giving you abatement. That's the same question, right?
Yep.
So you had to be careful, even if you do the project, that's how that was. You couldn't make a public notice. That's just how that works.
Well-
Now, it's exactly what you're saying. Like, if they're gonna do it, why are we helping them do it, right?
Mhm.
I mean, but then also, I said I'd be side by side on properties. We'd develop one, didn't get any help, and the other person got help. It's like, well, crap, I should have got help. So yeah, you see it that way. But if you look at the impact of that, the way Jason showed
But
it,
look
I'm on the
at it-
fence with it. I agree and disagree, right?
And I see both sides of that.
That's why I'm raising, I'm
Yeah.
not saying I'm
Yeah.
totally against it, I'm raising the reservation.
It's a good question.
And I see both sides of the thought process on, hey, some of these do phases. So you're in a TIF area, you're not asking for anything to come in for your phase one, but maybe phase two, we're gonna put some trails in, or we can connect in, or we can do something. TJ Maxx hasn't asked for anything. They're not in that TIF. But if we TIF that and those funds start growing and we relocate the trail, or we do something that makes sense, that's going to benefit them and their business, it's only,
Well, only thing we can do is benefit their business. It has
yes,
to
and that's
benefit
all we
business,
would
where
want to do. Yeah,
If it
absolutely.
goes to the city, they could do something completely off the wall that doesn't benefit their business. If we do it, we have to benefit theirs. Now, it may
Right.
like, they're like, well, that water line downtown didn't benefit it. Well, it did because your water line, it's like whatever it was, they might be an indirect.
Yeah, we can make lots of arguments.
It's correct.
But-
But is it true
Yeah.
or not? You're making an argument.
But you're absolutely right, because initially we're
And
like,
the issue is,
to
it's
use it as an
it's to
incentive.
our advantage to keep things as flexible as possible for us.
Correct.
So if you put them in a TIF, then you can only spend stuff that benefits them, whereas the city could spend stuff that benefits the city,
Potentially,
maybe.
Yeah, no, those are questions we have to figure
That's my
out.
reservation,
right?
Yes.
because
But if there's some projects that we are thinking about elsewhere, if, just say, we're talking about hundreds of dollars, if that property was $100 January 1st of this year, and its assessed value January 1st next year, because the building's there and the business is up and running and it's $50. Just using round numbers, I'm sorry. But that goes straight to us that we can then start working on these other priorities that we set, maybe potentially a little quicker.
They will benefit by increased traffic. I'll use TJ Maxx. They're going to benefit by any increased traffic, right? I mean, that's why they come to, that's the first question that they all ask is your traffic studies, right? So even if we help a property next to them become developable, they do benefit from it, as long as it's not their direct competitor, right? But, so I'm going to continue where we're going and we'll come back if we need to.
Yeah,
And then we would go, so this is all developable, whether you grab those or not. Menards is looking at doing storage units here. To me, let them do storage units and don't grab that piece of
Mhm.
property. That's my personal opinion. They do have outlots that they've platted here. Now this one's done, right? This one's built,
mhm.
but you have one here and you have one here.
Did we talk about,
And then all of this, all of this on this side of the road is for sale. I don't know if the signs are still up, but I know it's for sale
Yeah.
to be developed. And then this property just sold as well recently. And this is made to develop too. And I guess these are as well, but how much of that do you grab? Now, talk about an ethical dilemma. This here,
That's the
There's-
101, right?
it's one-on-one, like, yeah.
Thank you.
There's a possibility that, there's possibly Parkview goes in here, okay? So if you put that in there, you could choose to benefit them, but then you're not gonna get any money out of them because that's gonna be, you're not gonna collect any taxes anymore.
Yeah.
And you're putting a direct competitor to your small town
to county hospital.
hospital. So
Right.
you have to look at those things, but hey, if somebody else comes in, it's a huge benefit too. That's one, but so when you make it loose, you allow anybody, but when you make it strict, you have a water tower and some new sewer lines and that's it. But then, so those properties there are part of it as well that I know of myself that would be potential development. That's a lot to go through and talk about. But those are ideas.
Curious, so a TIF district can only be a certain percentage of your
12,
city limits? Like,
15%. We're sitting at 12.
No.
there's no limit?
there, we talked about that another time, but it was
At one point, there was a percentage we talked about, but I don't know what it was.
yeah,
Okay, so we're
You're
not,
right.
we're
You're
we're
not
not,
wrong.
we're
You're
not
in-
necessarily limited by, okay, we can do this, but not this, because we've only got a
Yes.
certain amount that we have to work with.
right.
Okay.
That's not so it's not a real limit?
We do not have a percentage.
Is there any developable land over by the splash pad that's going in?
It'll all be residential over there.
Okay. Never mind then.
It'll all be residential. There are a few.
Starbucks might wanna put-
Into another one. Single family residential. There is some potential for phase 2 and 3. I don't know if they'll do it in 2 or 3 phases, probably, behind like the Meyer area. It could be potentially some multifamily residential, but there's a lot of low ground there and I don't think that'll happen right away. The truth is right now we have, which is a good thing, not if you're an owner of them, but we are starting to find it's getting harder to fill up the new apartments that we do have. I say it's a good thing because maybe prices will eventually drop, but we've priced ourselves out of our market. So before more multifamily comes in, those are gonna have to fill up. Because they didn't build them expensive. They weren't the most expensive ones to build. I mean,
Right.
they're gonna be tough to fill.
Crystal, I had talked to you at one time about a potential, I called it a residential, but it's a multifamily, so it would be in that commercial TIF. that I'm waiting on some price points to come in that does, if developed, does need us, it's, you know, being in the TIF would be what would promote that development.
Right here, guys.
No,
Yeah,
right here,
sorry, right here,
yeah.
this one. So you guys get bearings here. This is the Ford dealer.
Down by Mommy and South.
I know where-
Ford dealer Speedway, straight in. This is that weird intersection. Come up, the second weird intersection. There's a dead end line. You guys know what I'm saying, right? Your description, right?
Exactly what you mean.
And this was platted at one time and it's since been done again now. And there has been talk for several years about bringing in, how do I say this correctly? Affordable housing for seniors. But I don't think that would be considered, what is, I guess it would be multifamily.
It would be multifamily and they're not owner
So there's
occupied.
consideration of putting multifamily here. One reason this has not happened, and I know this because I've been on the project years ago, is the cost to get infrastructure to this water, it's not really there. There's not enough there.
There's not enough
So-
capacity, so they have to come all the way to,
They gotta come all the way to here, I think, and not to the end of the road. There was cost. It was cost prohibitive to do
So
it.
the water main's not wide enough.
the
It's not
water
enough
main
water.
has to, yeah.
Correct.
So that one
And
and
there is a need for sure for
that type of
affordable
housing,
income, especially at that age group.
Right.
that's a desperate need,
and
so
this is
I would
provided
love
by-
to.
This, so I'll give you a little more information because I can, because it's not part of anything I've learned. It's designed and invested by people who do in-home healthcare as well.
Okay.
So they're familiar with that field and they're looking at it for a couple different reasons, but
Yeah.
it would be open. The reason they haven't done it yet is because they're trying to keep the rent below market rate.
And when it was initially approved in Plan Commission pre-COVID, 55 and over,
Yes.
which is desperately what we need right now. The same with this property
This
here.
one here?
Now, I have not spoken to him
That's where the old trailer park was. You remember that?
right across from.
This one
Is that what that
here,
used to be? I always
Yeah.
wondered.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
years
on the
ago.
roof of my
I've
house.
only lived here for 10 years, so I don't know.
yeah, it was, it's been longer
I
than
cut
that.
easels there last fall.
You did?
This here is designed for, this is a age in place. Is that a better way to say it? It's retirement
Like it called almost like a hybrid retirement
assisted living.
slash assisted living, yes.
But more of a-
Nursing home, assisted living slash nursing home,
But the price point here would be
quite a bit
towards
higher.
to middle class, upper middle class probably.
Okay.
Just so we're aware. And this one here was on hold too because of the ROI is not there.
Development plan was approved, again, pre-COVID, then construction costs went crazy
This one here would be very helpful.
for our water.
For the water, because right now what happens is in the summertime, this line goes out to the high school. In the summertime, they're going out once a week. I'll forget what it is. Tom's told me before, and they just flush the line and just let it go.
It's a
because
huge line and we just don't have
There's
enough.
not
use.
enough
Doesn't have
use
When-
in during when school's out. So
So-
that would help with that. I
Right.
mean,
Both of those potential developments, I would love to get here. And if I could offer incentives or some public-private,
Those are people that are
Partnership.
not TJ Maxx. Those are people that need the incentive to do the
Yeah.
project.
Right.
Absolutely.
So those one would fit that. So
so I don't know
Not
how we
no-brainers.
would take that in and grab it, either they're their own tips or extend to those. I don't know what would make the most sense, but I would love to get that in there
now
for that purpose.
I will share this. This is the wrong spot for this. Assisted living, half assisted living, not close to a grocery
It's close
store,
to a hospital and close to a park.
but it's not close to the grocery store or the pharmacy. So I don't
And
know.
the sidewalk right there is.
And the sidewalk is really bad. And I don't like running in front of your
I
house.
walk it.
I don't like
The
running.
trail starts right
But if
there.
But
Yeah.
if you're already having mobility issues,
This is
Crossing
a-
Getting to the trail.
Yeah,
I'd love to see
you're
it
right.
developed. I'd love to see it
Absolutely.
developed, but I don't know. Yeah, and this one here is a good location. It's back away from everybody else. It's in backyards. It was set up that way originally. And this property here is all owned by someone who at some point in time will be willing to sell as needed. I mean, they don't need to now. So,
but that's not city limits.
So to.
no, it's not, but this wasn't either. This just got
Right. It
changed.
would just annex it.
It was here.
Yeah, okay.
couple of years ago.
And I can tell you that our wastewater treatment plant would love to be able to loop around and have some fail-safe.
I mean, that makes,
That's what I
that makes the
wonder,
whole thing
like-
more efficient, doesn't it? Having
Yes, yeah, and so I don't know how to either connect that down, if we bring that into this one and connect it through the middle of the road, again, that's state right of way. Does that matter to us, what's state right of way and what's city right of way
Federal?
or federal?
Yeah.
Because the infrastructure's ours. Yeah, and the reality is we own all that infrastructure. I mean, it's ours, not the road, but
All the infrastructure.
Everything underground.
underground is ours. So yeah, that would be a good question, a good argument to make there for sure.
You know what I'd love to, we're not gonna do this, but you know what I'd love to see is all of our overhead power running down North Wayne, all underground. You know how much nicer the whole street would look?
I second the motion.
It would look,
Yeah.
it would just completely
Yeah.
change the look.
Yeah,
It's so disgusting.
I know,
It just is. But the
Yeah,
cost
and
is
I
so
Yes.
huge to get to the buildings.
yeah.
But the power never goes out again.
What's that?
So my neighborhood,
Until Frontier comes.
east of the Y, underground power
Yeah, you don't lose it.
is never going out.
Nobody's hit a power pole either, have they? Anyways, but that would be really nice. But hey, we can do this project. Wouldn't that be great?
Well, I think, yeah. I
So
mean,
what are your guys' thoughts? So before we meet again,
In general, I'm in favor of everything you said. The only thing I might want to consider, think carefully about is this TJ Maxx
Yeah.
situation.
Mhm. Oh, gotcha.
It's not quite up to date on this.
Yeah,
No, yeah, well, it is. That's the problem, but they haven't done it hasn't gone through assessment yet
Good.
because it's still assessed as.
it was assessed as part of
Where am
Meyer.
I at? Down here. But they have it parceled out, but it's not assessed again. Yeah. Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah, that'd be a bad deal.
So then
Have there been-
would that possibly be an issue with that whole old Nielsen's property? Has it been,
Hopefully, no, it wouldn't be, it'd be in the right
it
direction.
would be in the right direction because that was just house
That
and
was just
farm. I
ag.
mean, it had cows on it and it was.
Yeah.
Like that one there, I'll just show you. That one there will be really nice because if you look, I haven't looked before, but I'll tell you, it's gonna be cheap.
It's got an improvement.
It's, what's that? Like this it had Homestead on it probably, didn't it? No, it
So
wouldn't have,
then-
because they didn't, so they're
so-
paying $5,600 a year. That number will change.
so
considerably.
in this scenario,
Yeah.
we've got one big parcel right now at 5,600 a year. But if they're gonna make it smaller plats, would each one have that 56?
Yeah, so it has gone through primary plat approval, there's some conditions and some things that have to change, but as Eric kind of noted, it's got an access drive here, here's a lot, here's a lot, here's a roundabout, here's a lot, here's a lot. I mean, it's,
Right.
and it goes all the way
But
through.
the
So
question is, they don't, I don't know,
So-
Crystal, you might know that question, but once those are parceled out like that and they haven't gone through the AV period, how do they figure that cost?
we could definitely set a meeting with the
Hang on,
assessor for sure.
Assessment by request.
Only. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. So you guys, do you feel comfortable about everything that has been brought up tonight on what that map could look like? What, other than maybe the TJ Maxx one, which clearly your concerns are valid?
Well, that's another question on that. Do you know if tax incentives were given to them? Was there any abatements?
No.
There was no abatements to that?
Nothing.
See, and that's the other thing that happens. You could speak to this, but I think it's a true fact. These franchises that come in,
His personal opinion again, you guys.
don't necessarily search these abatements as heavily as locals development. So they're not always coming in looking for help either. So I don't know if we're taking anything away from them or not. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. If a ABC restaurant goes in and moves in out there, they just want to make sure there's enough traffic. We're a pretty cheap place to build compared to other places. So they can come in and make the numbers work if the traffic's there.
And when you're.
And they don't ask
friendly
for
and
those.
nice.
What's that?
So then you're friendly and you're nice,
Yeah,
they want to
It's
come.
got part of that once in a while. So. Is that Adam Grant that you're quoting? Do you know that book by Adam Grant?
No.
Have you read it? You should. It's a good book. It's a taker and giver, and everybody's a taker or giver. It's a good book. Now you got to add it to your reading list. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds,
So far, we're looking at most of the as a collection of individual parcels.
Say that again.
So far, we've looked at it as a collection of individual parcels, right? Like there's
Absolutely.
opportunity here, there's opportunity here.
Yes.
Yes. And
It's hard for me to
and
digest
taking
what it
in-
really means to say area.
I think
More broad.
what we would find is the first one we did was area. What we have now is area. It's not necessarily parcels because that area was supposed to develop. I think for Angola to do area, you'd have to get an industrial area because we don't have anywhere else that's developable. It's not single family residence. Does that make sense? That's, Crystal, when you say area, I mean, that you're seeing industrial parks a lot of times probably, or a blighted section of town that just needs to be taken down and started
Yeah.
over. Is that what you see when you're saying area most of the time? Yeah, but
The whole area, yeah.
okay.
But ours is pretty spider-like to be called the area, right? It's,
Well,
I
I
think
mean,
we're-
that's just a tool so
It's
that we
a
can
whole-
move things around it.
but the point of us going down the
Yeah.
middle of the road is specifically only because we could do infrastructure in those areas.
sure.
Now, bringing in the individual parcels into that area gives us potential revenue.
Yeah.
So that we can do the infrastructure improvements or the different things that we
I gotta
wanna
say,
do.
I'm okay with this strategy.
Okay,
Fine.
yeah.
I just don't,
I
the
feel like
thought
I
was,
am
we talked
too.
about doing a couple different areas originally, but now that we're where we're at, we know, since we started meeting even a year ago, there's now some development happening north of town. Nothing's been happening east or west of town where this is. So we could do a whole new area and not connect them. But for time saving wise, we can just do it all at the same time. It's kind of the thought process. So it is look like
Yeah.
a spider, but
Yeah.
it is kind of
And the
individual
thought
areas.
is probably, if we have to do a survey, it's a little more expensive on the front end, but then they're all one area on the back end.
Correct. And like I started with, and you have to have a good attorney and accountant that's gonna be okay with it, but the reality is our downtown, we will not get enough incremental increase downtown to pay for the infrastructure we really need to do down there. So we have to pick that up somewhere, but a good downtown is good for everybody.
Mhm. It is, when site selectors are looking at your area for anything, they're looking at those traffic counts, but they're looking at investment into your own community, and they always look at downtowns. That is the heart of that community.
Well, but Gale Street is the expansion of downtown.
Yes, absolutely,
That makes sense to
absolutely.
put that in.
I don't know, I told Retha, we were in the other day, have you been, this is way out of our league, but have you been down to Eddy Street down in Notre Dame? You ever been down Eddy Street in Notre Dame? It's,
Maybe, but I don't know what is Eddy Street.
it's just north of, like if you've eaten down, like just north, it's right on campus, but north of campus. Like if there's a Five
I thought
Guy.
it was
and a
south,
Brothers.
is it north? Yeah, it's north, sorry.
No, it's south.
It's
You're right,
south,
sorry, I said
yes.
it's south. It's just south of campus. I don't know if you've ever been down there, but they completely redid it all, made it look like an old downtown, and their neighborhoods look like a
So
neighborhood.
it's like multifamily residential with
It's-
retail and
It's
office.
awesome.
It's so cool. But Amanda Cope, our city engineer, just told me about another area that's been redone by Purdue.
Okay,
She gave a name to, and I can't think of what it is, but those are private investors coming in, not Notre Dame or not Purdue, that have worked around those universities to build that up, but it's benefiting that whole community, so it's just sometimes I have to kind of think a little bit broader, but it all ties together. And I always say, we had this conversation in my office the other day, it's all economic development. Any expansion of infrastructure, anything that we can invest in our community, whatever we can do, it all plays into that role of economic development for everybody. And I think as we continue to grow and plug into those areas, even the industries, if we're going down Woolert and touching base on that, I mean, there are things that we can do. And maybe it's very simple, like Crystal said in the beginning. Maybe our partnership and our benefit of being in a TIP district is wayfinding signage, or, you know, just something very simple to offer them as part of that incentive that, you know, doesn't seem like much, but man, it's showing a little partnership here. And I love that idea for development. So I think that we're on the right track. And I don't want to keep you guys much longer because we do have a storm and it looks like we're kind of in this weird lull right now. I was looking at the radar, but it's gonna hit soon, so.
Do you have any reports on anything?
I do not, I don't have anything. Crystal, do you feel like we've got a good start on this?
Yeah, it'll be done. Morning.
Got a black and white version, just.
We can do
color it
this.
in.
I did this earlier. We can go on to Beacon and actually draw it on Beacon.
Okay.
And have it
Or we
on
can
there.
highlight.
This is
I
not
can-
right. This is just to see if I can do it, but
I can scan in on one of these too, so we'll
however
get
you want to
that.
do it.
Yeah,
But you know what we're talking about.
yes.
And I would. Yeah, I think my opinion is we add some of those areas we weren't even sure if we want to do or not at this point, because we need to get the parcels looked at. So if we look at that area, if we do the TJ Maxx and we look at the area of the 55 and older, I think we put them in
Are
there.
we talking about making a list of perspectives and vetting them? Or are we talking about this is the list?
What's that? Betting them, yes. Yep.
Yeah. One of the question mark properties.
Yeah, so I think you put
Yes.
the bigger picture. I think we're bigger than what we need to be in some areas. We
Yeah.
do that.
And this is.
And then we have that list and we can say, this doesn't make sense, it does make sense.
Start big, whittle it down.
Yep.
Right, yeah,
Makes
Okay.
sense.
good call.
Good.
No, I like it. I think we're good and,
Yeah.
and then we talk about those broad projects, which we've all kind of agreed on what makes sense, so, I feel good about it.
Perfect. Anybody want to end the meeting?
I don't.
A second? I bet I know who it is.
I second.
All right. Thanks, Crystal, for being on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'll be in touch with you this week. Thank you. Bye.
So, John, this is
I gotta get
100%.
off of
I was thinking
live
it's
here. Hold
100%
on.
economic
Make sure we're not-
development.
Yes, we are. So just a second.